Welcome back to Rare Realities with Madimo Mimo Mokgosi, where we dive into the emotional journeys of individuals living with rare realities, where we tell one story at a time. Imagine going to the doctor and coming back with a diagnosis that it can either be cured, cannot be cured, or you have to live with it for the rest of my life. Today, it's a little bit different. I have a guest, which is Phindi, the gorgeous Phindi, and we will be talking about mental health, depression, trauma, the things that affect us and turns our health into something else. Phindi,
Hello.
how are you?
I'm nervous. I'm like, breathe, but I'm good. And how are
Not you being nervous.
right.
Please share a little bit about yourself before we go into the deep side.
Okay. Where do I start? I'm Phindi, born and raised in Soweto, Midlands. So I'm a Kasi girl. Yeah, I am a teacher by profession. I was raised by my father. We went through a lot. I went to 6 different high schools.
Pure.
I know, right?
Is it like every year?
literally every 6 months, like, okay, it's not working. We're gonna, so I went, but I think that's where my mental health journey started. And obviously I wasn't aware of that at that time. But yeah, I went to 6 different high schools. I studied with words teaching, and I've been a teacher for 6 years. And I'm a mother of 2 beautiful daughters, 10 and 4. I'm a sister, I'm a friend. Yeah. And I'm a daughter, even though my parents are late.
Yeah.
Lost my dad last year in
Oh
June.
no.
And that's more or less who I am.
Mm-hmm.
But more than anything, I'm a mental health advocate. I pride myself in finding ways in bettering my mental health and for those that are around me. So yeah.
I'm listening to you and you mentioning all these interesting things.
Yeah.
The person you are and what you are about. As a teacher, being a teacher is the most respectful career because you're teaching our kids.
Yeah.
And I always say teachers are more of parents because they spend most of the hours with the kids than their parents. And you know what? Well done. But you forgot one more thing.
What's one
more
thing?
Forgot to mention that you are a future podcast.
Oh, yes, guys, look out for me soon. Catch me, yes, definitely.
Yeah, Phindi and I had a short conversation and we exchanged numbers and eventually I said to her, I think it's time for us to have a conversation. She's like, oh, yes, over coffee.
Yeah, that's what I thought. When you said she's like, do you want to meet for a quick chat? In my hand, like, quick chat is coffee, So
no, let's have a serious conversation. So I picked up, you said that you think your mental health started or pricked when back in high school.
So what had happened was in high school, I had I would like to say a different journey. Okay. I went to 6 different high schools because there was bullying. There was a lot of things happening. But initially I started at a high school in Midlands. I did my grade 8. And then my dad was a chef at that time. So he got an opportunity to go to Mpumalanga and we were like, okay, great. Are we coming with you? He's like, no. You guys are going to stay behind. So it was me and my sister then. Me and my sister are 2 years apart. And when I look back, I was like, wow, I actually come from a child-headed household because he left for the longest time. He met, I guess, the love of his life at that time, he thought. And he just packed and he's like, I'm out. So with that being said, before he left, I was like, okay, do I stay with this? Do I stay in this high school or I'm going to a different one? At the time, the school that I was in was having issues in terms of children smoking and, there wasn't discipline and all of that. So he's like, no, we'll take you out. He took me to a school. I had to climb taxis going there. So I was like, okay, no problem. I went there. And then upon my year 9, I was there for the whole year until when it was around festive season. I had made friends then. It ended up being a thing where I'm visiting one of the friends and it was a situation where I got gang raped. So going back to the school now, I was like, okay, how am I going to go back? Because now some of the people that I had trusted, it was around, they brought me around that space, and I thought that it was a safe space. So what do I do? Then my sisters at the time were like, you know what, let's take you out. So I ended up going to Gwamahlobo, it's in Zone 10 Middlelands. I went there and I finished, I think it was around June, when they decided to say, okay, this is also, there's challenges in the school and an end. So what do we do? And when I look back, I'm like, yo, my sisters were kids making decisions on behalf of a child because there was no parents involved. So with that being said, long story short, I went from that school to a school in Lens. The school in Lens, I got exposed to bullying. There wasn't discipline there, to a point where it was so bad. We used buses from Lens to Meadowlands. And these buses, I think, were government based. So we'd go at a pickup spot, we get the bus to school and back. And while that was happening, the bullying would be happening in the bus. And there's obviously no teacher there. There's no adult there. There's no, when I look back, I'm like, there was no adult supervision. It was only the bus driver, and we can't expect the bus driver to stop at the side. He's doing his job. I went from Lens, and then after Lens, that's when my dad was like, okay, I think it's time you come and live with me. Packed my bags, went to Mpumalanga, and at the time, he lived with my stepmom. And I think they had birthed the last born, Yasekai. I was like, okay, cool, no problem. When they got to school, my aunt was like, you know what, it's fine, I'll take her. I lived with my aunt, I think, for like first 3 months of the year. And then around March, when schools closed, they were like, come to me, my dad. Like, come to me, me and your aunt are having differences. Then I went to live with my dad, and then I got exposed to abuse from my stepmom. So I was like, okay, what life is this, you know?
Hectic.
So with that being said, I was with my dad for like 3 months as well. I think around June, or it was before June. I think I left in May. I didn't stay for long because it was so extensive that I remember calling my sisters and saying, I need to come back home. And they're like, what do you mean you need to come back home? You can't, you can't come back this side. We don't have things set up for you. What about school? What about, you know, the challenges that we were having, no food and all of that. And then I was like, I don't care. I am coming back home. So long story short, I remember my sister at the time, at our church, she had met a couple. The couple was coming from Canada and they missionaries. So she explained the situation, went to the bishop, explained the situation, and the bishop was like, okay, let her come. Let's see if we can find her a school. Okay, cool, great. Made my way back home, and then we found a school in Meadowlands, and my bishop went to speak to the principal. Remember, it was around May. Yeah, I think it was May, beginning of May. And the school was like, why now? Like, where are you coming from? What's happening? And the bishop was like, you know what? I understand that you guys want to understand the details around it. For now, can we just get her situated and settled and we can have these meetings? Then they were like, cool. I had to change my whole subject stream because the subject stream that was done in Mpumalanga was different. So then, okay, cool. I remember the principal introducing me to my initial class and my class teacher and also the other teachers to say, we are having this girl, she's coming. She's initially from here, but she's coming from Mpumalanga. She lived with her dad and things were not working out there. So she was brought by her church and they think this would be the perfect in school. And at the time it worked out well because the uniform that I wore in Mpumalanga was similar, you know? So they were like, cool, no problem. I remember my teachers breaking down the work that I have to do. And this other teacher was like, there's no way she's going to pass. Like, it's June exams. What's happening? Anyway, they gave me my line of work on things that I need to study and all of that. Long story short, we wrote exams. I did my projects that were supposed to be done at the time. And then we opened schools and they're like top 10 and I'm the first in grade 10. I was like, okay, my life is different. It's time I accept that. And after that, I think I just navigated my spaces differently. But so rewind, before my dad took me, I dropped out for 3 years when I was 16. So I finished school when I was 21.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but I guess my genes worked well at the time because people couldn't tell.
Yeah.
But the moment where I realized that I'm having mental health issues and I need help, after the rape incident, and I changed schools, I then before moving to Mpumalanga, I dropped out.
Okay.
And initially, the reason for dropping out was I don't have resources in terms of food at home. And the school that I was at didn't do like your feeding scheme
Yeah.
and all of those things. The teachers were not involved. So it was quite hard to find an adult that would be able to help me navigate my space. So at the time, my sister was doing promotions, and she's like, you know what? Let's see if we can get you in. In my head, I'm like, but I'm only 16. I mean, won't they see anything? Funny enough, they never picked it up.
Yeah.
They never picked it up. I did the promotions, but around that time, it was a very confusing time in my life. I ended up trying to take my life. And I got admitted to a well-known big hospital. And how I was received then as well made me realize, we are a country that has a lot of work to do. Because, and I think even being part of the Black community, if you have mental health issues and you act on them, it's like,
Yeah,
like,
it's always the
yeah,
first thing.
there's always an outside force that's forcing you to do these things.
Yeah.
They're not realizing that there's different types of depressions. So at the time, how I was received at the hospital, they were very hush. I remember one of the nurses being like, you don't know how grateful you should be. In our times, there was all these things that we were going through, and you guys are here, and you are just now trying to kill yourself. And even the aftercare from the hospital, they had suggested that I see a counselor. And I remember attending the first session, and that lady kept on asking me the same question. Like, so how do you feel about it? How do you feel about it? And I'm like, what do you mean? How do I feel? I'm here. That should give you more of an idea of that I'm not okay. So even their approach and how they did things. So that was when I realized, okay, there's some mental health issues here. There's some emotional work. And looking at how I was raised, I mean, my dad was a very violent man. Seeing my mom being beaten up. I remember there was a time where her whole leg had worms coming out of it.
No.
And I remember asking as a child, like, what is this?
Mm.
And I don't remember how she explained the whole thing, but basically we were part of a house that was filled with domestic violence to a point where my mom ended up being an alcoholic. So there's so many layers of things that I went through that ended up triggering
up,
exactly that whole, I'm always sad, I'm always feeling down, I'm always, in this state of mind, what's happening. And it's only after I tried taking my life, that's when I realized to say, okay, these things actually have been affecting me, and I'm not in a state where I can say I'm normal. I know normal does not exist. I don't believe in normal, but at that time, I can say that I wasn't content with myself and how I was.
How long was this when you tried to take your life?
I think I was 16. I'm 32 now. My maths is bad. I'm not a maths teacher. I'm an English teacher, disclaimer. But so I think, it was around when I was 16 years. 16.
Would you say that was your breaking point that made you realize that you needed help with your mental?
I think at the time, it was a breaking point in terms of realizing that I'm not okay. But the help that was available to me,
well, it didn't help.
I was in a way. I was in a way. I think we sometimes we think mental health, like it's the same as having doctors. If you have flu, you can go to all these places to a point where we have malls that have places that are not like a proper established with doctors, but you'll find nurses inside, you find people ready to help. But when it comes to mental health, we treat it differently. There's no place where you can just walk in and be like, guys, I need help.
Yeah, you need help,
Yeah, so at that point in time, I knew that there's work that needs to be done. But because I was at an age where I wasn't self-aware, I mean, at the time, hormones are just all over the place. You getting to know yourself. There's the idea of boys. There's the idea of high school. There's too many things happening outside of you that you are like, okay, this is normal. This is part of life, and this is part of a journey. I think it was only when I got to varsity when I realized, okay, now I can stand up and do the work.
There was so much that happened into your life I don't think there was even time for you to stop and pause
Yeah.
and realize what is happening
Yeah.
or tackle one problem at a time, because
Yeah.
it seemed like this happened, the next, it was like a domino in a
Yeah.
way. But now, till today, I know trauma is not one of the things that we can literally say, I've made peace with it, I've
Yeah.
moved on.
Yeah.
What have you done?
The work.
Yeah.
So when I got to varsity, I realized it's okay. There's a problem here. And in first year of varsity, I think I was turning 22, and at that time I had met someone that I thought was the love of my life. So we ended up being pregnant, and that was my first year. So upon my first year, my dad then was like, "Oh, are you old enough?" Because he initially came back. I think when I was doing matric, he came back to Netherlands, and things were not working well for him then. He had lost his job, and so when they came back, I was in matric, and then after matric, I passed very well. I got a bursary, and when I went to varsity, when upon getting pregnant, he was quite disappointed with the whole thing. Like, you are getting a chance to live your life, and then here you are, here
Yeah.
getting pregnant. So my dad was a very passive man. I'm not gonna sit you down and say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm going to make you feel that you did something wrong. I'm gonna say things indirectly. I'm gonna do things. So part of the things that he would do, for example, at that point in time, we didn't have a working geyser. We would put hot water with the bucket, and I think they call them urns or something like
Yeah.
that. Yeah. So we had a bucket, and he would hide those, right? And he would do things that were just, even with food, they'd buy food and put it in places that I could not find. And when I was pregnant, I was like, okay, I need to obviously do things differently. I was blessed enough, the bursary that I got would pay for my fees. I think I got like 85K, for example.
Yeah.
And the fees were like 23. So with the remaining money, I had to decide, okay, what am I going to do? Am I going to move out of home? Am I going to stay here? But also having a newborn baby, it was quite a weird time to navigate my space. I remember feeling that I need to drop out, and the thoughts and ideas of trying to take my life came back. And I was like, okay, what do I do then? I remember having a conversation with my sister and the father of my child, and I was like, I want to drop out. I can't do this. And they're like, are you hearing yourself?
Yeah.
You went to 6 different high schools, you dropped out for 3 years, and you passed so well to get to varsity, only for you to say you want to drop out. Ganjan. And I was like, I just don't see this working out. And I remember my sister saying, you know what, I think you should research in varsity and see if there's places available to you for help. This is my older sister. Okay, I have 2 older sisters, but it was the oldest one. And then adverts, there's something called CCDU where you can go, and they sort of like do like it's almost like a quick questionnaire
Okay.
of well, how do you feel? What has happened? And
Yeah.
long story short, I did that questionnaire. They took it back, and they gave me results via email. And they said to me, "Okay, you need to see someone." And I remember them assigning me a therapist, and we had like a couple of sessions. Or before the therapist, I saw a doctor, and then I saw a therapist, and then that's when I was actually diagnosed. Okay, you have depression, and because of that, we need to then do the work. That was the time when I was like, okay. And with having a baby, that's when the trauma, like, how can I put this? You know, sometimes there's things that we go through and we put them in the back burner. Like you said, these things are happening and I'm not
They're
dealing with
building up.
them.
Yeah.
And I'm just surviving at that time. When I had a baby, it then triggered the trauma that was in me, because now I'm realizing as a mom, I need to show up for this person. I need to make sure that they have food. I need to make sure that their clothes are clean, and. Now I'm asking myself, okay, where was my mom, type of thing? Even though I know where she was in terms of her life story, becoming an alcoholic and initially running away from home and leaving us with dad because she couldn't handle it anymore. But those things were quite traumatic. And it was only when I got to varsity when I realized, okay, I have a lot of work to do. When I looked at the father of my kids at that time, there were similarities in terms of my dad. My dad had this thing of, like I said, he was very passive. We had what is called a trauma bond, where you are at the hands of your abuser, but you are not aware that this person is not. I mean, this is
I
the
think
only
you're
person
comfortable
I know.
in a way.
Yes, I wouldn't say comfortable, because the thing about trauma is it creates a space where you think it's okay.
It's safe,
You
yeah.
know, you don't know anything outside of that.
Yeah.
Therefore, this is normal. This is okay. My dad would be an amazing dad, like love bombing you, you know, speaking life into you. You can do great at school. And then only after
Next
2 weeks to
minute.
change the tone. Now he's being passive, manipulative. No, you know, other kids outside are doing this, that whole thing of comparing siblings. No, your sister doesn't do this, or comparing myself to my sister and trying to discipline my sister. Like his way of doing things was a lot. Like it was like different. Like, okay, this week we are cool. Next week we are not okay.
Yeah.
And then there'll come a time where he's now apologetic about the things that he has said. Instead of coming and saying, I'm sorry, you'll see him, you know, cleaning where you are supposed to clean and cooking when you are supposed to cook. And even where sometimes we, like lunch, school lunch, we were not exposed to this whole system and idea of packing nice lunch. There must be fruits, there must be, you know, water, there must be, then you have like a small change where you can buy yourself something. We were never used to that. You're going to go to school and you're going to see yourself out. If there's food from the previous night, the only meal that we'd have was supper. We didn't know what lunch was. We didn't know what breakfast was. And with that being said, it was only when now he's trying to make things up where he's like giving you money, like, okay, here's 100 rand. You see how you space it out for the week. And in your head, you're like, but this is not what we used to. So that would be now a cycle where it's like, we are okay, we're not okay, we're okay, we're not okay.
Yeah.
And because being used to it, it's like, oh, okay, this is normal. This is how other kids are being raised. And it was only when I would go to visit friends where you seeing, obviously at the time, or even when I look back now, I can't say I knew what was happening behind closed doors, but you're seeing other kids being life is spoken into them. The dynamics of the family, there's a mom, there's a dad, and there's, you know, there's lunch, there's supper, there's breakfast, like things like that. And then, so when I had a kid, that's when I realized, okay, I have a lot of trauma and I need to be able to figure out like next steps. What do I do with this? You know, because it affected my friendships. It affected, even till this day, it happens where a person is literally just, I don't know, we people and we make mistakes and they don't maybe respond in time or whatever. And it just triggers you and you're like, oh, now I'm like out here cutting people off. Only to find out the pain that I'm feeling is not the pain that they are responsible for. It's just that this pain is triggering the trauma of the things that I've been through. So when I got to varsity, that's when I got the opportunity to realize, okay, I have trauma. Okay, me and my dad have something called trauma bond. Okay, what do I do with this? And my therapist at the time was like, you know what, I'll just tell you, we take it a day at a time. You come for your sessions. She gave me work. She gave me books to read. And that's when I was introduced to the whole idea of journaling. It's like, you know, sometimes because you're a person that overthinks and you have certain character traits that because you've grown up with these things, you think they're normal. Even when you have emotions and things that you need to talk about, you don't talk.
You don't
So with that being said, have a book where every time when you have these moments where things are coming up, you can write them immediately. Because if you don't write them immediately, that's when
they deal with you later on.
Exactly. And you'd rather deal with the thing before it deals with you. Type of thing. Yeah.
It is so hard. Like I came across a saying this week that we are not triggered. We are still mad.
Yeah.
We're still going through that pain.
Yeah.
I guess we covered an open wound with a bandage.
Yeah.
And the more we bath or it gets a little bit of water, it kind of opens up the wound again, all over again.
Yeah.
And have you seen your mom since?
So my mom is
left
late. Yes. So she ended up. Yeah, my story. Like I need to write a book, guys. So she left when I was 2, and then obviously upon needing and wanting her, it was only when I think I was 4 when I realized, okay, mom is not around as she should be. She would come back though. So this is how the dynamic of my mom and dad was. Mom would be at home. Mom would want to go chill with friends and, you know, live life. Mom would go chill with friends. Dad would be angry about mom chilling with friends. He'd go and fetch mom from there. And then it ended up growing to a point where mom would leave to go out and have a drink or two. My dad would fetch her from wherever she was.
Yeah.
And upon her coming back, beat her up and all of that. So initially she ended up running away. And then when she ran away, it was a thing of we know where to find her.
Oh, okay.
But it wasn't like, oh, she has a home. She couldn't, when they met, she hadn't finished school. She didn't have anything of her own. So even when she left with nothing. She was leaving not knowing where she's going. And unfortunately, she ended up becoming a prostitute. And yeah, she lived in Rodiport and would go and see her from time to time if my dad would allow us. So I was that child that I'd push back. If I would get 7 rand to go, I'd know where to get the taxis.
Yeah.
Go get a taxi, go see
your
her,
mom. Yeah.
and then she'll put me back in a taxi. But long story short, she ended up coming back. I think I was 11. At the time, she was sick and she had nowhere to go. So she came back home to my dad to be like, okay, I
This
have
is the
nowhere to go.
situation, yeah.
Yeah. And at the time, my stepmom was also around. So it was
Okay.
such a weird dynamic. I think she actually stayed for like 2 or 3 days because it ended up becoming physical between my stepmom and my mom. And then she left. And then she came back. I didn't see her after that for quite some time. She came back, I think my mom passed when I was 14. So 13 towards 14, that's when she came back. But now when she came back, my sister had found a place to rent, my older sister.
Okay.
She had found a place to rent and my mom would from time to time visit her. So when her health started being really bad, she then just stayed. So we would then go to my sister to go visit her. So I was exposed to her like 13, 14. That's when we like sort of, I guess, I wouldn't say it was a relationship because now it's like, who's this person?
Yeah.
You haven't really been around all my life. And even till this day, that's work that I have, even with my therapist when we discuss it. It's a wound that is not healed yet. Like how you just said now, there's a bandage over it. From time to time, it gets wet.
Yeah.
And if it gets infected, I heal it or take care of it to a point where it's okay, but it's still a wound and then I move. It's something that I'm struggling, I guess, to revisit because as a mom now of a 10-year-old and a 4-year-old, I have so many questions and she's not here to answer.
True.
And with that being said, my therapist was like, you know what? This is something that we can take step by step.
Yeah.
For now, because you have so many things. I mean, last year in June, I lost my dad. In August, I lost my sister. And then in September, I went through a separation. So I have so many things that are like in front of me that need dealing now.
Yeah.
Even though with my mom's whole thing, I feel like I could have dealt with it. But it's almost like I'm not ready.
You were young
Yeah.
as well, you know? You were young. There was literally nothing you could do.
Yeah.
Even if you look back now and you wish you were there for your mom, you were probably there for your mom as a child.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
You would do things different now because you have learned so much and you know how to somehow control your emotions and deal with things.
Yeah. You know what's the funny thing? So my therapist did this whole thing with me where he puts you on it's almost like an uneven, I don't know what to call it, but it's something that you stand on top of, right?
Okay.
It's curvy like this.
Yeah.
And when you're on it, you need to try and
balance.
Yeah. But while you're trying to balance with your body, he puts the like things that you guys have spoken about are out to see how your body physically reacts to the balancing.
That's
interesting.
interesting.
And that is actual life. So when it comes to my mom, as I was standing there, so he was like, okay, always behind you, you must always think of your ancestors in like a almost like a pyramid shape like this. So with that being said, you'd have yourself.
Yes.
And then whoever that you're closest with that you feel empowers you will be right on your right. So right usually is dad's family, left is usually mom's family.
Mom's family, yeah.
So then he placed people, the minute he came to my mom's family and he placed my mom right behind me.
You dropped.
I literally dropped and I started crying and I was and he said to me, put her all the way back. In your mind, in that pyramid, she's all the way back there.
I love that.
And he said to me, the things that you've been carrying because of your mom, like what you said, sometimes as kids, or sometimes we think kids can be there for parents, where that's not the actual case. As a child, you cannot be there for your parent because your parent is supposed to be the person that is taking care of you.
Yeah.
So for the longest time, when I'd get in a taxi and go look, see if my mom is okay, and sometimes I would get there and she hasn't eaten, and if there's friends around that buy me something, I'd share it with her, and those kind of things, and the things that I've went through, it makes me realize at that time I was trying to more or less take care, and
True.
you know, and the things that she's went through with my dad, the anger that was directed towards my dad, yes, there are things that I can be like, yo, bro, you failed me as a child. But when I was looking at him, I was also looking at him as, you failed my mom.
Yeah.
So now I'm carrying my things and I'm carrying my
your
mom's things, and
yeah.
they're heavy, you know?
Yeah.
They're heavy. So with that being said, yes, looking back, is there anything that I could have done differently? No.
No.
Because I'm a child.
You're a child,
you know?
Yeah.
So when you mention that, it just makes me think of that. So about how most of the time it's those kind of dynamics where we think kids can be adults.
Also, more than anything, I've realized that, as maybe from a personal view, as I grow, you tend to be weighed by people down, not even your problems. It's not always about your problems. You find that your problem is literally just a drop.
Yeah.
But you're so used to carrying people that you think, you know what, I can do it.
Yeah.
I dislike the word strong so much.
Me too.
Because everything that we do, no, I'm strong, I can do this.
Yeah.
And now people see that, and they also
feed into
use
that.
it. Use
they
it,
feed
you know,
into that.
and be like, oh no, she's strong. Every
Yeah.
time they have problems, where do they go?
Yeah.
They come to you because you're the problem solver.
Exactly.
And you never seem like you have problems, because at the back of your mind, you're always like, but my problems are not that much.
Yeah, it's not that deep.
Yeah, people need me more than,
Yeah.
you know, I need
Them.
myself.
Yeah.
Which is one mistake that we do. And I wanted to check with you, have you ever set your dad down? Because sometimes I feel like we carrying so much anger that we take it out on the wrong people, when we actually need to confront some of the people who put who are actually a catalyst in a way when it comes to our I don't want to say our depression, because I don't want to make it ours,
giving it
you
power.
know? Yeah.
Yeah.
But have you set your dad down?
Yeah. So it's crazy. When I think of my dad now, I think of happy, I think of calm, I think of humble. And a person will be like, hey, but you just said.
Yeah.
The journey with my dad was a very different one. Like you said, sometimes as a people, we think we're strong. We think, you know, we will sort out people's problems and I'm going to be the superhero. Not because I want to be, but because people are making me assume that position. And with that being said, with growing up and now becoming of age and being able to be like, okay, I'm going into relationships, certain questions that I had that I couldn't ask anyone but my dad about men.
Yeah.
Is this normal? Is this... So after leaving, and because I ended up leaving in after my first year, upon the whole being taken into for therapy and an end, I then made a decision to say, okay, I'm going to leave, because already as it is, the environment is not the best. And I sat him down. I was like, okay, Papa, I'm going to leave. If there's anything that I'm grateful for that my dad had taught me, was always be respectful of the adults in the room, despite what or how they make you feel.
Yeah.
And I even used that with him.
Nice.
So I sat him down and I was like, because I could have left. I could have been like, you know what, I'm taking my bags, I'm leaving.
Yeah.
Because you're not ready to be a dad, or you haven't been a good dad, and now you're a grandfather, and clearly you're also not ready for that.
Yeah.
But I called him and I sat him down, and I remember, even, you know, in the Black community, it's so easy to have meetings with other people involved in the community. So at the time, I went to fetch this other old man who was held very highly by my dad as well. And we sat down and I said, hey, look, bro, I gotta leave.
Yeah.
And he was like, but what does that look like? I was like, no. And I made it so much about him. And it's like, no, I want to give you space with your family, you know, and I just want to be a mom. I want to focus on. I never said I'm leaving because I'm hurt. I'm leaving because of how you're acting. I didn't highlight the things that I wasn't happy about at that time, and which was, I think it was good on my end because, and that's something that I've always navigated my space with. I read the room and I know when it's the right time to bring things up. Because sometimes people are not ready for certain things. And you're not knowing how they're going to react, you then don't know what that's going to do to you. If it's going to heighten things, you know? Anyway, I sat him down. I said, I'm leaving. He said, no problem. He had an issue with it a bit. It's like, like you have like a fresh baby out of the box and you want to try and go navigate your space out there. Like, who's going to help? I was like, no, the father of my kid is there and I'm just going to see how I go about. I left, did my first year, second year, and then graduated. Didn't even invite him to my graduation because I was just like in my feelings about the whole thing. Graduated, and then the father of my child was like, okay, Mahadi, I need to come to your house. That's when I was like, okay, now that means I need to have a conversation with my dad because he's the one that's going to receive the lobola. And then upon that, went back to him and I was like, okay, let's talk. It wasn't time yet. He was more excited about Mahadi at the time. Like, oh my God, my daughter's about to wed and. Long story short, the whole Mahadi thing went well. And then that's when I realized, even my husband at the time was like, you know what? You need to have a conversation with your dad. You need to have a conversation with your dad. Because there's things that we want to do that we cannot do. And had a conversation. We reconnected properly in 2020 before the lockdown. And then when lockdown happened, we were like on the call back to back. And he then got admitted because he was sick. We didn't know what was wrong. Even when he came back, when I was in matric, I think it was in 2013. Yeah, 2013, he was very sickly and we didn't know what was wrong. And then leading up to then 2020, he got a diagnosed cancer. Oh, no. And it was like, okay, now he has no one around him. I'm the only one that has a car. Now I need to be out here taking him for hospital visits. So we ended up spending more time than we anticipated, which then brought the conversation of, you hurt me. I'm not okay. But what I appreciate is he brought that conversation up. I navigated as if not. And that's always been the case. I don't know if this applies to any other communities, but in the Black community, even if you're angry with your parent, you must keep quiet. You mustn't say it. You must leave it alone. If your parent comes back to you, that's a blessing. If not, you'll see how you navigate your space. So I think, genuinely, when I look back, I think he knew that I'm going to leave in years' time. And there's work that needs to be done. Because I remember him sitting me down and saying, I would like to have this conversation with all your siblings, but I feel like you will be more receptive. And I was like, okay, what is this conversation? He's like, I want to apologize to your siblings. I want to apologize to you. I actually want us to go and apologize at your mom's grave. And I was like, okay, where's this coming from? And he was like, no, I just think it's time. There's things that I did. There's things that I was exposed to as a child. I was always the strong one. I was always the one carrying people. And that ended up making me to be a very angry person because I didn't. And as a man, I mean, even today, men and mental health, we don't speak about those things. A man is not supposed to be angry. A man is not supposed to be sad. A man is just supposed to be provided, like just sit there and provide,
There's so much pressure.
So when we had that conversation, I was like, I had almost like a aha moment, like, oh, okay. You were, like they say, hurt people. So you were hurting us because you are hurt. So when he wanted to apologize, he apologized for how he brought us up, apologized for us being exposed to the domestic violence. We even, at that time, funny enough, I then decided to do an unveiling for my mom. And even through that process, he's like, okay, let's go. Let me apologize before you try to do everything else. We went there, he apologized, and sapahla and all of that, which is a ritual that Black people do to connect with their ancestors. So we did it then to connect with her, and he apologized. And I think that happening did a lot for my healing.
True, I was just about to say.
Because then I was like, oh, he's a person. Because most of the time, honestly, we navigate our spaces, and it's almost like as people, we don't see each other as people.
Yeah.
And even in my studying of becoming a teacher and the conversations I've had with people, realizing that actually a person is self-aware of
the things that they're doing.
Yeah, but it's only when they're 28 years old where they are mindful of the people around them. So here we are 16, we are 15, we are 21, we're trying to navigate our spaces, but we still want people to be mindful of us. And that's when you get the friend that always calls you to talk about themselves, the friend that always calls you when they have problems, but when they're happy, they don't show up, you don't see them.
Yeah.
And you have people that have been refined in life to be those, it's almost like, and maybe this is not a great way of putting it, but we have people in life that are there to make us aware. That's their calling, that's their journey. And even with the whole thing, like you just said, you're always strong for people. I was that person. Even with everything that I've went through.
True.
People are like, yo, yeah, you're so strong. Yo, like, we
Yeah.
can call you. I mean, like, this is happening. What do I do? That's when I realized, like, man, in as much as I have a calling, I also need to have boundaries.
True.
I also need to be mindful of myself and the gift that I have and how people receive me and how I receive people. And even after having a conversation with my dad, I was like, oh, so he didn't have boundaries. He didn't have things that he had put in place to make sure that he's okay. And he was given, because he raised his siblings. I remember there was a time when we were very young. We had a couple of his brothers around. And it was like, okay, what are these people doing here? But because it's like family and prolonged stays, and it affects how we also navigate our space. But yeah, we had the conversation and he apologized. And I'm grateful that I did, because seeing cancer do what it did to him, he ended up being bedridden for 2 years. And the conversations, the tone started changing. Things that we started talking about started changing. I remember even a time, like, even I'm obsessed with galleries. I'm obsessed with just going to see art and all of that. I remember him saying, you know what, please do things. I love hiking, and it's something that I'm gradually getting back into, because even when we were taking care of him, literally we had no lives. You need to just go to work, come back, show up, go to work, and have a family. So I'd go back. It's my kids, and then I'm calling my sister. What is needed? Okay, let's see what we can do. If it means I go on a Wednesday, that's what I do. Other times I need to be there for the whole week. That kind of a dynamic. I had to switch off the things that I had to do for myself. And I remember when, I guess, he was now having that realization that I'm leaving, or he's leaving soon. He said, please start doing the things that you used to love doing. I know that you're obsessed about art. Please start doing those things. Please start. I know that you used to love the whole hiking thing. You loved camp, because the church, they exposed us to camps and hiking and all of that. It's like, please start doing those things again, because I'm here and I cannot go anywhere. To a point where I remember there was a time we thought, like, okay, we need to get a stretcher and like take him to a park or something.
Yeah.
But the amount of pain that he was in, to a point where even when you lift him up, he would cry. And my dad was such a strong man growing up. He was, I mean, his name is Shaga, and I think his parents named him accordingly, because he's the way he was. He's the stature, and like, he was a strong man, tall, dark, handsome, big eyes, bushy eyebrows, the typical African man. And with growing up and seeing how he raised us, yes, he was rough around the edges, and he, sometimes he used his hands to communicate, even with my mom, which wasn't a great thing. But when that last 2 years of his life, it gave him no other choice than to be humble. Yeah. Because you can't move. You need to depend on other people to do things for you. You need to depend on other people to bathe you. It's like it was a whole different dynamic for him. And if there's anything I pray about, is that I pray that he received his healing. Yeah. Because it was a lot. It was a lot for him. But we had that conversation, and I'm just grateful that I forgave him before his passing. I'm glad, yeah. Compared to my mom. Because I think that's why also now I'm having a struggle with it. It's like,
you still need to find peace from what your mom has done when she lived.
Yeah.
And because she's no more.
Yeah.
Don't you? What makes you think you will, I know you will get over it, but
Yeah.
what are the steps that you are going to take towards your healing? Are you still seeing a
A
therapist?
therapist.
Yeah.
So I am still seeing my therapist. And in terms of my mom, I think it makes it harder because she can't answer the questions I have.
True.
With my dad, I took advantage. I was like, okay, this guy is ready to speak. We go to
Yeah.
speak. And I made sure, and I appreciate the fact that he would even say, I know some things are not going to come up now.
Yeah.
When they eventually do, I'm ready to talk.
Yeah.
Let me know. Sorry. With my mom, it's different. It's super different because she can't answer the questions that I have. If anything, I know that it's a matter of owning up to my emotions and how she makes me feel.
True.
I remember having a conversation with a friend last week, and she was just saying to me, you never speak about your mom. And I even thought that growing up, you never had a mom because you never touched on her.
Yeah.
I was like, no, my mom was beautiful. Oh, she was,
Yeah.
even when I think of her now, she was the most beautiful woman I've ever seen in my
Yeah.
life.
Yeah.
But obviously, with the things that we've went through, I think definitely I've been journaling and I'll continue journaling. In the next steps, it's now revisiting her grave,
Yeah.
cleaning it, and even just being mindful of, even though she's not here in the physical sense, there's a place where I can go and belong with her.
True. True.
So that's my short-term plan is just go to her grave
Yeah.
and just clean it. Don't have to say anything.
Yeah.
You don't have to, just go and exist in that
Yeah.
space, because I've come to realize that the spaces that we are in are also responsible for how we feel. And what I mean by that, I'm not saying the spaces that we are in give us the emotions,
Yeah.
but the spaces that you are in, it's either they allow you or they refuse you to be
True.
who you are in that
True.
moment. And if I can go to her grave and just exist in the pain, that's a space where I can exist
Yeah.
with the
Yeah.
pain.
Yeah.
Because from time to time, I mean, we are adults, we need to go to work, there's certain spaces where you can't be emotional. There's certain spaces where you need to be professional. In the same way, one thing I've learned with being a mom, it's only in the couple of months that we've been dealing with grief where my 10-year-old is going to come in and she's not okay. And she needs someone to, calm her down and all of that. Where I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, I need to show her a side of me that I also have emotions, in terms of she will be crying and she feels like it's bad to cry.
Yeah.
But now that's because she's not seeing me cry enough
Cry.
as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying parents should then cry in front of their kids and tell their kids why they cry, because sometimes you need to protect your child. I can
Yeah.
tell you that I'm crying because I miss my dad, but I cannot tell you that I'm crying because my dad abused me. The concept
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
too
Yeah.
much
Yeah.
for
I
them,
hear
you
you.
know?
Yeah.
So with that being said, even with my mom, my 4-year-old asked me, I think it was like 2 weeks ago, a friend of mine came over and she had to leave early because she's like, she has to go see her mom. So after she left, she's like, where's your mom? I have a grandmother, but it's dad's mom. And so they call Bono's mom. Bono's mom has a mom. Who's your mom?
Yeah.
And I'm like, ish. Now I'm realizing I'm getting to an age, they're getting to an age where I need to ease them into who is my mom?
Yeah.
Where is she?
Yeah.
What kind of relationship did we have? Even with my oldest, she looks like my mom. She has my mom's nose. So from time to time we joke about, like, when we just like joking around, she'll be like, oh, I remember you just have your mom's nose, and we'd laugh about it.
Yeah.
And it's almost like I shut it down immediately, like, okay, that's enough.
Yeah.
But I'm realizing that there needs to be a conversation there. There
Yeah.
needs to be, in as much as I switch on the candle for my dad from time to time, switch on the candle for my sister from time to time, I need to also do
it for your mom.
for my mom. Because they were asking, we do this whole thing of when I miss them, we pray and we light a candle. Where's your mom?
Yeah.
So with that being said, my next steps when it comes to my mom is just visiting her grave and journaling.
Yeah.
And I need to give myself the time to go visit her homestead, Mtat. I've never been there. The last time I was there, I think I was I was young, because it's stories that I've heard.
Yeah.
I don't remember myself physically being in that space. But with the stories that my dad has told me and with the story that my late sister has told me, I've been there before.
Yeah.
And I won't say unfortunate for myself, but unfortunate for myself, I look like my mom's side of the family. my sister, who, like, it's now the two of us who are left, she looks like my dad's side of the family.
Yeah.
So even with that, from time to time, when people comment and we together, like, oh,
You
you
look like
guys
your
look so
mom.
different, but you look the same.
Yeah.
Who looks like who? And the fact that I look like my mom is like, ugh, I need to deal with
Yeah,
it.
you need to, because I can still pick it up from here that there is so much
Yeah.
healing that still needs to happen
Yeah.
between you and your mom.
Yeah.
And I think at the same time, you also need to forgive yourself in a way that there was literally nothing you could do. You did everything that not even a child was meant to do.
Yeah.
One. And then secondly, remember your mom for the good, not what she has done, because that is going to bring more anger to you.
Yeah.
And you're not going to heal from it. But if you think of the good things that she did, the good things that she might have taught you back then, and I'm sure there was a good side of your mom that you'd like to actually, wait, mama, and I'm starting to love that,
Yeah.
you find something that you relate with your mom,
Yeah.
and you'll see from time to time, it will also bring healing to you,
Yeah.
because now you've got a daughter. What would you have done if you were in a situation? You're not going to leave your daughter. That's one of the things.
Yeah.
So you become a better version of your mom,
Yeah.
and you remind yourself, oh, actually, I would not do this
And that,
just
yeah.
because because your mom has brought so much trauma to you, and this thing you live
Yeah.
with. We can't shut it down just like that, but it takes time,
Yeah.
so that, because I see that picking up, it's a generational thing, that your dad was treated like this, hence he treated you guys like this.
Yeah.
You were treated like this,
Yeah.
but for you to actually cut,
Yeah.
because honestly speaking, these generational things are cut by us.
Yeah.
Because we now recognize that actually there is a problem that is continuous.
Yeah.
What do I do? Do I continue with it, or do I stop it? And I make sure when you stop it, the next generation will find a wall there where it just goes back. It won't get to them. And you kind of somehow feel like, oh, I can actually change something.
Yeah.
One, you're not just changing the situation, but you're changing yourself as well. You're becoming a much peaceful person. Sometimes when you find healing, and from a personal view again, last year I cut my hair because I was going through so much, and it wasn't just one thing,
Yeah.
I found that I was letting things build up, and then I realized, with a woman, when your hair is done, you're like, oh, my problems are gone.
Yeah. That's
so
true.
I felt like my hair was also now becoming part
A
of my
problem.
bandage. I made it my bandage.
Oh, like my hair is done. I'm happy.
I'm happy.
Yeah,
I was
yeah.
like, cut it all off. Let's start all over. I went
Yeah.
through emotional journey, a spiritual journey, and now I am at my happiest. When I tell you, nothing, and I mean nothing, can stand in my way, or I say, oh, it's triggering. Yes, it's coming.
Yeah.
I see what
You're like,
it's trying to. Yeah, I
Yeah.
see my anxiety trying to knock, but I'm just
Yeah.
like, I'm too focused for that. I'm too focused for that.
Yeah.
You build yourself into the kind of person that you will look, even when you are gone, people will look back and say, but she did this.
Yeah.
They'll only mention the good things that you have done.
Yeah.
But the bad will be. Also, I feel like our community, I'll say in a Black community, we still have this thing that we need to know, and I think we know, that I'm going to say it in Sotho, lentswe ha se monwana, ha le kgutle. What you're saying,
it's gone.
Once you say it, it's gone. You can't take it back.
Yeah.
So we also need to be self-awake.
Yeah.
We need to be awake of the things that we say around the people. Like you said, you've got a daughter. You can't say, my mom, my dad abused. I'm hurt because my dad abused me. Because now she's going to grow up with that hatred as well, because we carry
Yeah,
One thing
we
about us,
do.
we will
We
carry
do.
what other people
We
are
do.
feeling, what people are saying about others,
Yeah.
when yet we do not want to experience something on a first go,
Yeah.
but through secondhand,
Yeah.
which is one of the other things that is hurting us. And when you sit with your sister today, do you guys ever talk about how you guys were brought up?
So me and my sister are in two different spaces in our healing.
Okay.
And what I mean by that, she hasn't done the work at all. And it's not that she doesn't want to do the work, it's a lot.
Yeah.
I think I was blessed enough to even go to varsity and be those resources being available to me.
Yeah.
We don't have resources available around
No,
us,
yeah.
you know, and even with how I think South Africa, Nje, we have work to do. And what I mean by that is we need I feel like schools should have, yes, we have schools that have therapists. We have some schools that have social workers, but the therapists that you find in schools are therapists that are focused on what is the clock when it comes to this child being academically productive.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And yes, there will be those instances where if this child is affected to a point where in class they are unable to do the work they're supposed to do, only then we're going to entertain the idea of this child is not okay.
Yeah.
What about those kids that are sitting and surviving? They're doing amazing. They are passing 90s, hundreds, but there's nothing available to them in even conversation. Sometimes, I mean, if we're looking at therapy alone, it's very expensive.
It is.
A proper session, you'd be like if you get someone that will charge you like 1.7,
Yeah.
right? 2.5 going up or whatever. And what about then a person that doesn't even have a job?
Yeah.
How am I going to have these resources available to me? And I feel like with my sister, it was one of those things where she did finish high school and then she had her daughter, I think, in matric. And she finished high school great. She navigated her life and her spaces in the best way that she knew how to. As we speak right now, as I sit here with you, she is admitted for severe depression.
Sure.
Because it's like we were in the same house, going through the same things,
Yeah.
but how we receive it differently.
Yeah.
Even with my dad trying to have a conversation with us, she was not ready for that conversation.
Yeah.
And it did trickle down to even my dad's passing. She was around. She did what she had to do. She showed up. And you find people like that show up despite how they feel.
True.
You will not pick it up that this person is okay. But if anything, they come across most of the time as, not that my sister's an angry person, but she comes across as very strong. You will not sense that, And it's only a few people that can pick. Like for me, I take it as part of my calling. If we are chatting and you say, "Hi, Phindi, how are you?" I'll pick it up then that you're not okay.
Yeah.
That's just how I'm wired.
Yeah.
But you have people that are not wired like that. So she's been the one who to take care of other people. To when she has friends, the focus is other people. We're going for birthdays, we're going for whatever, it's other people. So she hasn't done the work at all.
Yeah.
We've had a couple of conversations where we've sat down and we're like, okay, what's the way forward? Even this week, she got admitted literally last week, Sunday. And she's had a couple of breakdowns in betweens where we have to video call and she's just like, I'm not understanding this. Please break it down to me because you went through this process before. Even if it wasn't wrapped up in this manner. You were admitted, yes, you went in, but at that time and this time it's different.
Yeah.
But because you've read up on it and you've come to understand it, I mean, I even have a program called SMH, Social and Mental Health, where we just gather and have conversations.
Yeah.
So she was like, I know you will more or less break it down. They're giving me this. How do I react? This is happening. What do I do?
Yeah.
And even sometimes, even if it's just a prayer, we call each other, we talk, how's your day, how's mine? And we pray about it. So we have had a couple of conversations leading up to, even our relationship is affected by what is happening because now it's almost like, not it's almost like, but there comes a time where your pain will be like, okay, it's time.
Yeah.
I'll affect your relationships. I'll affect your working relationships. I'll affect every single thing. And that's where the term, that's where the term toxic comes up. But if a person is toxic, there's things there that they haven't dealt with. Now, those things have become so normal to be embedded in them. They think it's normal, you know?
Yeah.
It affects how they navigate their spaces. And that's where you see, okay, this is not someone's personality. This is a problem. This is, you need to navigate your space differently. How do I deal with this? So we've had those conversations. Obviously, I will be there. I have to be there. I'd love to be there. I'm going to be there for her in navigating her space and what it means now moving forward. But it's I think for her, if anything, she even expressed to say, it just hurts that I allowed, it's not that I allowed, yes, right now, I'm not blaming myself, but because I didn't deal and I didn't know how to deal. And there were things that, like, I didn't know where to get help, where to go. Now I am forced to deal with it. And most of us, we do that. You wait until you are forced to deal with it. And how far are you willing to go in terms of being forced? Am I going to be like, okay, this is an uncomfortable situation, I'm hurt, Mimo did this to me, can we have a conversation? Or I can keep quiet about it and let it harbor. And when things harbor, it's like germs grow in heat.
True.
And it's closed.
You're going to meet the next person who's probably going to do the same thing. And then you can't always be hopping around.
Yeah, we are checked where we are. Yeah, energy is real.
It's sad. And you mentioned something very important. One thing about pain is that pain is the same, but it will affect us in a different manner. And how we deal with it is also different, because you might find that journaling helps. Someone might find that talking to someone helps. But we still do not have a method that like we can say, but it's literally, and the sad part is that you personally need to find help. It's not help from, and if you are willing to be helped as well, because a therapist or psychiatrist can do so much. But you also need to meet them halfway.
You need to show up.
If you are willing to heal what's been hurting you, because we can't always. One thing I have learned is that you can't be going to the same thing that hurt you.
But it's that trauma bond. You go back.
You go back, but at one point you need to have boundaries that, okay, you've hurt me so much. I'm ready to actually detach myself from you, even with people as well, And I think we are very picky when it comes to the people that hurt us. We're like, no, this one can hurt me, but that one cannot hurt me. Why can't you have nobody to actually come and help?
Don't tolerate it from anyone.
Don't let anybody hurt you. And I think that's one of the things that also plays part in our healing process, because at this point there is nothing in the book that's going to help, but to actually just talk about it. And the more you talk about it, the more you heal. You healing the next person that might also be going through the same or different thing, or someone who knows someone that actually, I'm going through this and I don't know how to, because honestly speaking, therapy is not cheap.
It's
It
very
is
expensive.
But if it was one of those resources that's available to anyone and everyone, I would literally suggest it to everyone to actually go for healing, because we are here and healing doesn't stop.
No, it's continuous. I've been doing this for the past, I don't know, for the past 10 years. I've been like,
healing, every single
edit.
day you're like, I'm healing, and it feels like I'm healing from different things. Like there's just so many arrows that were sent through, and every day you literally trying to like stick it out. But when you stick it out, that means now you're leaving an open wound. So that open wound might get infected, and now it's a whole process again. Now we're starting all over again. But what's that one message that you would give to someone who is now depressed and feel like, you know what, this is the end, and this is what I am going to do?
I think I'd say it's okay to not be okay.
True.
So many times, or at a lot of times as a people, we think, "Oh, I cannot be sad. I cannot be in my feelings. I cannot. It's okay.
It's okay.
Where you are, what you're feeling, it's okay. Your emotions are valid. Because sometimes it becomes a problem. I think as a people, we not our EQ, we hold high IQ so high. Like, yo, if you're emotion, like if you are an intelligent person, you're smart, you're able to do your maths, it's like a wow thing. But when it comes to emotional intelligence, not so much.
Yeah.
A lot of people are not emotionally aware. A lot of people are not emotionally intelligent. So a message that I say to people: start here. I'm sad. I've been sad for 5 days. Okay, I'm going to 2 weeks. Okay, my heart is heavy. What's happening?
Yeah.
Ask yourself those questions, because if you don't ask yourself those questions, nobody's going to. Most of the time, we expect nobody's coming to save you. Actually, we are waiting for, okay, this person is gonna come, or I'm in a relationship. My woman or my man is
Will
supposed
save
to,
me.
is supposed to see when I'm not okay, or my parents or my friends. No one is coming to save you.
Yeah.
You need to get to a point where you accept that you're not okay. And how do you get there? By being yourself. If I'm in this space and I'm not okay, let people around you receive you how they may. That's okay. But if you start with yourself and you say, I'm not okay, that allows you to be like, okay, it's dirty here. That means I need to clean. What do I have at my disposal that I can use? Okay, there's this I can use, I can mix together. Same as the cleaning process. It's the same as internal struggles. If I know I'm not okay, and this emotion that I have was brought by a friend who said this, why is this triggering me?
Yeah.
Or why am I allowing her to say certain things? Then you go to the person, you deal.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid to have those hard conversations, because that's also another thing that puts us back. You will have people that are hurt. You have people that are in their emotions. You have people that know this person did this person did this. But we are never willing to say it out loud.
Yeah.
Say it out loud. Say it for yourself if you have to. And like you said, not a lot of people journal. Some people don't even know how to journal.
Yeah.
So with that being said, it starts with you. Research, look up places that you can go to. Where can I get help from? And in as much as I said earlier on that, unfortunately, we do not have places like where I can just walk inside you buying, I don't know, a burger. I'm here to
Go
receive
get
my
help.
healing.
Yeah.
Those places are unavailable. Look at the spaces around you and see if there's places that you can go to. And should it be that there isn't, then it's going to have to be a thing where you sustain yourself until you get to help. I even think of sometimes when you're watching movies, you see someone going through something and they're in a bush. They try to look around them like, I'm gonna get a plant that can ooze water. I'm gonna get this, to a point where some people have to use their own pee to survive. And sometimes we look at them and we're like, really? But sometimes that has a connotation of, even when you're a person and you look around you and there's nothing, what is it that I can still take outside of myself that will sustain me to a point where I can get help?
Yeah.
And also pray about it.
Prayer.
May you please, God, may you please bring, or whatever force that you believe in, I believe in God. God, please bring the people around me that will allow me and help me get to a better place than where I am. Please bring people that will refill my cup, because I can't drink from an empty cup.
Yeah.
Most of the people around us want us to pour into their cups. And when it's time for them to pour in our cups, they are nowhere to be found, So know your people, know your go-tos. I have my go-tos. My life hasn't been the easiest. Things have been hard, but I know when I scroll down my phone, who's the first person I'm going to.
Yeah.
And sometimes even when, we get embarrassed because we think what we're going through is not this thing. How am I going to say this?
Yeah.
How am I going to put this out there and say this is what I'm going through? If you find yourself and you're scrolling through your phone and there's no one, have a conversation with yourself.
Yeah.
If it means you look yourself in the mirror. For me, I'm big on writing. I write a lot of my feelings. I mind map them. Sometimes you don't have much to write. Just literally mind map, make a Bible, sad. I'm sad because of this. I'm sad because of that.
Yeah.
Things that I can do, walk. I love walking. And those are little things. And these things that are made available, you hear people going to the gym and we take it. And that's something that I also need to hold myself accountable, whether it's gym, whether it's walking. There's certain hormone that is released in your body when you are actively
Active, yeah.
doing these things. And that can sustain you till a time when you can get to a place where you can talk.
Yeah.
So these things that are available to you, use them. And if you don't have anything of, I can have a therapist or I can have this, there's programs, there's things around. Even with how I started SMH, I remember sitting down and being like, I'm a mom. I have no one to talk to when it comes to being a mom. I have no one to talk to in terms of my body changes. I'm in a relationship and the relationship is not going how I thought it would go. I need to speak to other women. And I remember picking up my phone and be like, who are these? Okay, who can I? Okay, there's no one. So what do? I created my own space where now you're having other people coming into your space so that they can also understand what they're going through.
Yeah.
And even in that process, when we do things, I remember there was a time where we went wine tasting. We literally compared yes, I know that there's people that do not drink and we had non-alcoholic available too. But we were looking at how wine is fermented and how over the years as it matures, there's a certain taste that it gets.
Yeah.
And that's life.
Yeah.
The older you get, the more things you're exposed to, the different you walk. Things start changing. How can I appreciate the bitterness but still enjoy what comes with that?
Yeah.
So the beginning of it is accept that you're not okay.
True.
It's okay not to be okay. Then do your research. There's this kind of depression. There's this kind of depression. Okay, I have seasonal depression. It's only when it's cold where I feel down.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a problem. Then this is what I can do. You have triggered depression where when things happen, then it makes you sad for a long time, but it's not actually what is wrong, So get to know yourself, spend time with yourself. Because also there's another thing, people don't do that a lot. You want to be in spaces, you want to be around you. It's music, it's so many stimulus around you that you are not even aware of the things that you need.
Yeah.
Spend time with yourself. The more quiet a room is, the more you're able to hear the voices. And when you hear those voices, you can then decide, is this my voice or this is an outside voice? And then you can then navigate from there to say, okay, I have some work to do. You're not going to be able to heal if you don't spend time with yourself. If it means you purge, I usually do what's called purging. That week, I won't talk to anybody. People will call.
Yeah.
My kids will be away to their dad. And I will lock the door and I will sit in bed. Obviously, I'll eat in between and shower in between and do whatever I have to and read in between. But I block out the outside stimulus of people needing something from me. Even a conversation is selfish. When I say, hi, how are you? It's not about how you are. I want a response. That's why even we having the green dot taking away blue ticks and a person is not going to know if you've read a message or not because you're creating a boundary. I can respond to you whenever I want to,
Yeah.
So be intentional about those kind of things. Have boundaries.
Okay, thank you so much. Well, guys, I think we've just given so much information and an hour wasn't enough. We need more. But you heard from Phindi. It's okay not to be okay. Now I say we go to a place. I already have a place in mind to where we can oversee the whole of Randburg. I think it's in the North Cliff. We all go there and we just scream.
Yeah.
And then come back.
Love that.
Come back. Everybody will just be okay. But until next time, from us or from me, bye.
Thank you.